Hey guys, Kirk here, and thank you for joining me on a new video on the channel. In this week's video, I want to build up some flatland blending or flatland breakup, whichever one you prefer. I'll probably utilize flatland blend just for naming, but essentially what this is where we break up the material layers, and well, could we say we add additional material layers to the grass that you're seeing on screen here. This is quite similar to our slope blending. So if I go and move my camera over to the slopes here, you can see here we've got multiple layers. So we've got the grass area here, what you can see. That's blending in quite nicely with the slope. And then you have this like rocky, bulgy bit, that's our transition layer. And then this flat area here is our slope layer. Let's find somewhere bit more better to indicate it. So you can see here, this whole texture here is our slope, and then you'll get this little line around the edge, which is our transition layer. You see it more here. If you choose the right texture, then you'll get a nice little blend like we're getting here. You can see it more here. This is our slope layer, our transition layer, and our grass layer all blended together nicely. And essentially that's going to be the same as this flatland area. We've got all this green now, all this grass. The texture breakup's working quite well, so that's good, but you can still see a bit of repetition. What I want to do is add multiple layers into our flatland, so it looks a bit more realistic than just open green flatlands. And that, essentially, that's what we're going to be doing in this week's video. Before we get started with that, I do want to plug my Discord a little bit. It's a new Discord I created last week, or the week before maybe. And it's starting to build up now quite nicely. If you are watching my videos, I'd recommend jumping on Discord if you need any help. Also, on my channel, I do have a membership program now where you can join, and you'll get some goodies with the join membership. So go check that out if you want to support my channel and all the work that I'm doing to teach you guys about environmental art. Okay, so with that being said, let's get on with the video. Over the past few weeks, like I say, let's open my master material. That is the material instance. If you hover over them, you'll see there it says material instance and materials. You can also see it at the bottom of the file as well. But we're going to open our master material. And this is where we're up to so far. We've got our auto material here. I'm just going to double click and open that. And we can actually shut our master material down. We don't need that. But we've got our auto material here. So these two material layers are our slope and our transition layers. Essentially they're what create the slope, as you can see in the model here. It looks a bit funky there, but let's not worry about that. But there are slope layers, and then we have our grass layer. So in this position of our auto material function is where I'm going to put my flat grounds function, and we're going to create that now. So I'm going to come to the content drawer, and in my layers folder, keep in mind guys, if you have been following this series all the way through, you should have the same folder structure, but if not, go ahead and create yourself a material layers folder. And up to now I've got a master, which is our master layer, which I use on all my material layers. And then I've got a slope master, which is containing all this that we're looking at here. I'm going to create a new folder, and this is going to be our flat ground. I'm going to right click, new folder. I'm going to keep the same number convention there. You've got 0 then 1. So this is going to be 2 underscore flat underscore ground. Just like that. And okay, we're going to open this up. I'm going to right click in here and go to materials, material function, and I'm going to call this flat ground underscore main. This is going to be our main function. This main function is going to reside in here. I am going to right click here, create a new folder, and just call this functions. So we can create our functions in here. So the way I'm going to do this, I am going to right click and create a material function, and we can call this flat ground underscore layer underscore blending. and this is where we're going to blend our material layers up. So I'm going to open this up, and this is essentially, like I say, going to blend our materials together. I'm going to right click and choose blend material attributes. So if you put blend M into the search, it should come up. Press enter, and now I've got our blend material attributes node. This is going to blend our materials together, but as you all know, we're using material and height, so we need to blend our height together. This is a lot similar to the one I've done in a previous video, with some differences. So I'm going to hold L on the keyboard and left click and get a lerp in here, and from the A input I'm going to type input and get a function input, and this can be material A input, like so. And I could simply just duplicate that. I'll get rid of the _1 at the end and change the A to a B. One too many spaces. We'll plug that straight into the B. I may need to swap these about, but I will see later when we come to testing and debugging. Okay, so here off the lerps on the A, I'm going to get a function input again. And this could be changed. We'll change this to a vector 3 because it's going to be a height texture. So we'll get the input type as a vector 3. And we'll call this height input A. Like so. Just keep it a little bit different. We'll duplicate that and we'll get rid of the _1 and A and put B in there. And just click away. And now we've got two inputs there. Like I say, we may have to come in here and swap these about. Sometimes it can be a little funny, but we'll do our best. I'm going to set the priority of these straight away. So material A is going to be 0, and I'm going to put my height A as 1, and then my material B as 2, and the height as 3. So outside the function, it'll be the material A and the material height A input together. And now what I want to do is I'm going to right click, get a new function input, and this one is just going to be a breaker. So I'm just going to fill it up with equal signs, enter, and we'll do that. And this is going to split off our masks from our inputs. So our last input, which was height B, is 3. So this will be 4. And we can actually move that out of the way anywhere. And then from our alpha here, we're going to get another function input, like so. And this can be left as a scalar parameter input type. And this can be our material mask, and we need to find the priority again because I've already forgot. So it's 4, then 5. That's our material mask, and then we need a height mask. So I'll drag off that alpha of the lerp, type input, get a function input. We'll drag over there, and we'll call this height mask. Like so, and this can be 5. Is it 5? No, this needs to be 6. Like so. We'll close that up, and there we're all set up and ready to go. We'll change this from result to material, and we'll go ahead and duplicate this. You'll get an error, that's because nothing plugged into it, and we'll call this height. We'll set the priority as 1, so it's below the material output, and we'll just drag these into here respectively. Just organize this up a little bit. There you go. Go hit apply and save. We can actually close that off because I know it will work. Okay, so I'm going to come to my flat ground folder again and open my, we can actually close, no, we'll leave it open. We'll open the flat ground main, and we can get our material layer, our flat ground layer blending, put that in there. As you can see there, I have got that. As you can see, just a little thing here. You can see we've got MA for material attributes and V3 for vector 3, which indicates what kind of input that is. If you don't like having that on, because sometimes I don't, it does look a little bit more cleaner when it's just words like that. To get rid of them, it's very, very simple. You could just simply highlight your function, Control and D, and it actually gets rid of all them input types. And you could just have it like that if you want. I'll remove that one. And now you can see all that import I made is just there. Just splits off our mask from our inputs. Okay, so that is that. We can drag this off into that output, and we'll call this output material, like so. And we can duplicate that just like we did in the function, the blending function. Height, and the priority can be a 1. There you go. You see we're getting errors here. Function flat ground blah 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 missing input for material A, material B, and material mask. So let's not worry about that just yet. Okay, so what I want to do now is to build up the actual mask. So I'm already in my functions folder. So I'm going to right click, go to materials and material function, and this can be flat ground underscore mask. Right, so let's go away from that. Right, let's open this function up. Before we go any further, I want to showcase what I do when creating a Perlin noise. And we can simply come here, hold T, left click. You don't have to do this, I'm just showcasing. And if I go into here and just type Perlin, like so, you'll see we've got two types of textures. One's more higher contrast than the other. But what I like to do, as you can see, they're pretty much the same. I like to create my own noise masks. So I can delete that. And there's a website I use when I create my own noise masks. And I shall jump over there and showcase what I mean. Okay, so this is Perlin Noise Maker. And I will share the link for this into the description. But essentially here you can create a Perlin noise texture of any kind that you want, the best you can. It's really good, really powerful. Here at the bottom it shows you how it works. So have a good read through that. As you can see, cell size determines the coronus of the image. Perlin noise is made by blending together gradients that are evenly spaced apart in a grid, blah 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 blah. Just come in here and have a read yourself. It's very useful. This is a very useful website if you like. So yeah, anyway, move on. So at the top here you have a random seed, and below that you have the width and the height. So this could be seen as a resolution. For this I'm going to start with a 512. So with a 512 it makes it a little bit bigger, a little bit more detail in there, but you also keeping a cheap resource. So as you can see, I've made it a lot bigger. You can change the random seed here, so it just moves it all about a little bit. You can choose any number, it's just a random seed, just moves it about. Under that you have levels, so as you can see here, levels will blend extra levels of noise into your texture, with each additional level half the resolution of the previous one. Blending several layers of a noise can produce a cloudy effect, so essentially if you add maybe 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 levels, you could then create a mask that will be good for clouds, and you know, just experiment a little bit, you know, aside from what you're doing. You get some really good results here. So my cell size is 16. I'm going to increase that a bit. Let's keep it at 20. We're getting a nice amount there. Like I say, you have levels, attenuation, groovy. Groovy just makes it look silly. You get some good results. That could be used for things like maybe water droplets. Highly doubtful, but maybe. Just some other good stuff, but we're not using it in this video. You have colour as well. You can set each individual levels into each individual colour. So like RG and B, so you have a red channel, green channel, and blue channel, and all that good stuff. And you also can set an alpha channel. But for now, that's pretty much what I want. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit download. You can see here it's noise texture.png, and now all we have to do is import that into Unreal Engine. So I shall see you back over there. Okay, so now we're back in Unreal Engine. We need to get our Perlin noise in here. So I'm going to go into my flat ground folder. And in here I'm going to right click and type and click on import. As you can see, it's sent me straight to my downloads folder, which is great. all I have to do is click on that noise texture and then open. And now it's just imported that noise texture. What we have to do now is, for one, save it. Like so. We'll open it again. We're just going to double click on that texture. As you can see, it's imported as a 512 by 512, which is good. What we have to do is to change our compression settings from the default DXT1, sorry, and we'll change it to a mask non-sRGB. We'll just hit save because we're just utilizing this texture as a mask. And then all I have to do is to drag this noise texture into here, like so. And now we have our own Perlin noise texture inside of our flat ground mask. What I want to do now is just to keep building up this mask and then go into debugging. I'm going to hold U on the keyboard and left click, get a texture coordinate node. You can hold M on the keyboard and left click, get a multiply, and we'll just drag that into the A input. And from the B input, I'm going to get a function input. And the reason I'm using function inputs within my mask is because we could utilize this mask in multiple different places. So I could just change the scalar parameters on the outside. So in this input, I am going to call this flat ground mask UVs. I'm going to put 1. The reason I'm putting 1 is because I want a secondary one. No, I won't put 1 actually. I've got a different idea for that. So we'll just go flat ground mask UVs. We'll just put that in there. We can just simply drag that into the UVs of our text sample. In here, I'm going to set a priority in here. And just hold 1 on the keyboard and left click and get a constant 1 vector. And in here, I'm going to set a default value of 0.0026. Press enter. I want this to use the default value. Now this will look a little crazy once dragged into the output. Like so. You may just make this out, but like I say, it just looks a little crazy. But we'll keep that value. I know that value is going to be decent because I've tested this out, believe it or not. Okay, so from the red channel, I'm going to drag off and get a multiply. And this is going to control the intensity of our mask. So I'll drag off here and get an input, function input, sorry. And in here, I can call this flat ground mask intensity, like so. And that's going to control our intensity. Now, if I come out of here, I'll go back to functions, and you can see I've got here a cheap contrast with offset. Just let all my functions load. And we're going to utilize this. We utilize this in other parts of the landscape shader, but we're going to utilize it again in here. That's why it's really powerful making functions up, because you can utilize them in each and every place. And we'll put that into the input. And this is going to control our contrast. In fact, I'll just duplicate that particular input and just change intensity to contrast. Or actually, I can call this sharpness, because this is going to control the sharpness of the blend between the grass and the other material layer. Could just call that sharpness, like so. Then what I want to do is to 1 minus it, so I'm inverting it. So if I type 1 minus, at 1 minus, I'm going to hold M on the keyboard and get a multiply node. And I want to multiply this by 2 to give it a little bit more higher contrast. So we're not getting, essentially if I multiply it by 2, it's going to create a higher contrast within the mask and then enable it to not showcase the material layer far within the grass and all that good stuff. From there I want to saturate, and this is going to clamp the values between 0 and 1, and then that goes into our output. And this output is going to be our material output. Material, so delete that, material output. Right, so that could be a set priority of 0. And we need one for height. So I'll get the height. So this could be, I'll just name it all again, height output. In fact, I'll change it to mask, so mask. Because our ground main is set that value to 1, set priority, and this can be material mask. And this could plug straight into our clamp right there, our contrast node. So essentially that is particularly our mask done. If I hit apply on there, go to my ground main, and I'll get, go back to landscape shader, layers, flat ground, and our flat ground main. This is what we're in now. Go to the functions, and we want our flat ground mask. As you can see, our input is material mask and height mask. That's why I chose to change the name. I'll just drag them into there, like that. We're all done. Okay, so I need 2 layers. If I go to my auto material, our grass A layer is going to be one of them. So left control and X to remove that. Go to flat ground main and left control and V. And now I am going to put this into our, I don't know whether I should do B or A. Let's go with B for now. Don't forget guys, we can always change this. What I need now is another material layer. So prior to the video, I created a new material layer, which is dirt C. And essentially it's this texture. It's just a bit of mossy grass with rocks. I feel that could blend quite well with the landscape that we've got now. It's also 4K as well, so we're going to utilize this material layer. We'll go flat ground main. I'll drag this in here. I'm not sure if I set up the UVs in this because I only did it this morning, this new layer, but we'll see. I'll drag them into there, like so. As you can see here, we're getting an error from our mask. You'll get this quite a lot as you work with functions. If I open this function up, say I set this like that, and I'll hold 1 on the keyboard, a bit like this constant 1 vector. I'll hold 1 on the keyboard and do this, and I'll plug it into the preview of there. You don't have to do this guys, but you know, you can do if you want. And I'll just highlight them both and set them both to preview. If I hit apply and save, I can actually close this map. Now I'm going to keep it open. You can see now that error's gone away because it needs a value going into here. But if you set that as a preview just with a 0, that means you could bring this function, say this function was really big and utilize it, and you only want to utilize 2 inputs, but it has like 7 inputs. If you set a preview to them inputs, you won't get an error, which I just thought is a little thing you could know about. It's a good little thing anyway. So I didn't set up the group, the set priority. So our flat ground mask UVs, I'm going to leave at 0, and then these respectively could be 1 and 2. We'll hit apply. Come back to our flat ground main. You can see we're in the right section now. Okay, so let's set these up. So I'm going to promote this to a parameter, like so. Flat ground mask UV, and then promote this to a parameter. Flat ground mask intensity, very simple, and then sharpness. And I'll set that up there. Okay, so in this, the UVs, like I did in the preview, I'm going to set this as 0.0026 as a texture scale. And then the mask intensity, I'll just set them both to 1. Just see how we get with that. We're seeing nothing on the preview yet, but let's not worry. What I will do is just highlight them. I'll set the group. I'm going to put a -5 and then test. And essentially this is what I do. When I put a -5 and test, then when I come to debug and test this, it will be right at the top of the material instance, so I am not searching around for it. I'll hit apply on our flat ground main, and this is pretty much set up for testing purposes now. So as you can see, we need that in here. This is where our flat ground A was, our grass A or grass B material layer was. So I'm going to come back to shader, layers, flat ground, and here's my flat ground main. If I drag that in here, and I can essentially just plug them straight into there. Okay, now is the time for debugging, but what I want to do first before you debug is just to make sure you save everything. Ooh, there you go. And then we'll see what happens here. Let our shaders compile. Okay, as you can see here, I think it's still, it's still preparing shaders. But as we can see, our grass is okay, but our material layer itself isn't. I think the actual mask, let's see if that's finished, really slow preparing these shaders. There is an actual trick you can do in the settings file for the engine where you can increase the shader completion time. I may do a video on that in the future, but we'll see. Okay, so that's finished now. It should stop stuttering everywhere. As you can see, it's not worked out quite right, but that is not the actual mask itself. That's the material layer. The new one I created this morning, the Dirt Sea layer. So what I shall do is just quickly go through the material instance and find it. Well, landscape shader, material instance. Open this up. As you can see here, right at the top, -5 test. That's because I set the group and it's there ready to be tested. I think what's happened is because I've duplicated this layer from another material layer. Let's close what we don't need. Dirt A, Dirt A, Dirt B, and we need Dirt C. Okay, so texture breakup is already enabled. That seems fine. And if we do this, let's just have a little play about these now. So these are rapidly not right. So for the near, I want 1100, like so. And then this one can be a 600. And this one can be a 150. Just for testing purposes. As you can see now, our actual material layer is coming through very well. Quite a nice blending. That's why I love using height maps for blending. As you can see, you're getting a nice blend between there based off the height map. You can use normal blending. I do have a video on normal blending on my channel. But over time, I've come to accept that blending with a height map gives better results. And it's cheaper than normal blending. Okay, so let's have a little test around this. Let's increase that to 0.082. Let's make them a little bit, it's a bit too much. As you can see, it's increased the texture scale, so then Perlin noise is just dotted about everywhere. But you can see there we're getting our Dirt Sea. So if I come to my Dirt Sea, the overall intensity put 1, as you can see, that's going really bright. We'll put a 0.7 in there for now. Maybe a 0.3. Yeah, 0.3 looks okay. Common. All these options you see in here, guys, are what I have set up over the course of this series. So if you want to learn more about this, then I would recommend checking the series out as a whole. For the contrast, I'm going to put up a bit to a 0.4. Give it a bit of a darker look. And I think that's pretty much it for that, actually, to be honest. And I have all my material layers here, all ready to be edited. Obviously, these parameters are not quite how I would have them, personally, in a finished product, but I will be doing a video on sorting out our material instance and tidying it up a bit, and like your slope A options here. Where are the slope options themselves? Is slope A, slope B. But essentially I should have slope options, but they'll be entangled in here, but like I said, we'll sort them out. So now we have a mask on our flat ground. Let's just lower that, so 0.0026, 0.0023, 0.005, 0.43. Yeah, I'll just keep it like that for now. Okay, so as you can see here, we've got a nice result. Quite happy with that. There is one addition I would like to make, but I'll probably do it in next week's video, where we can edit, we can utilise the mask we've got here. We can utilise that and have it so we have some edge blending, and you could do that with a multiple or a different texture if you like, or you could have it where you utilise this again and have a secondary texture within the actual texture that's within the material layer that's here. The possibilities are endless. I say endless, but there is obviously expense to it, so that's something we must keep our eye on. If I reduce the intensity to 0.2, you can see that disappears. 0.3, 0.5, 0.6, 0.9. You can see it's just starting to come back in now. 0.8, 0.9, 1, and 1.2 just gets larger and larger. So 1.95 looks like a good result. So sharpness, I reduce this 0.2. It just completely removes it. It's still there, but because it's blended in so much, it just removes the actual thing. So what I want to do is to just increase that ever so much, and you can see it's starting coming into play. And if I just keep increasing this now, you'll see around the outsides here, it will just start getting sharper and sharper and sharper, as you can see right there. But it gets to a point of where it starts to merge or go bigger, if you like. For this, you could just reduce the intensity if you want, and then just that blend starts to get sharper. So if I put 5 in there, 6, 10, you can see how sharp that's getting now. So you have that option there to have a sharp blend. But for me, I reckon about a 2.4 is nice enough there. And we can just reduce that intensity to a 0.4, 0.6, 0.75, you got 0.85, 0.95. I tell you what, just set it to 1. And we'll reduce the sharpness to maybe a 1.6. And there we go. And now we've got a different layer on our flat grounds. Some shaders are compiling somewhere because I'm jittering everywhere. Okay. So for me, that's a successful start to this group of videos of where we're going to be blending multiple material layers onto our landscape. As you can see in the distance here, you can see it's spread out throughout the entire landscape. The good thing is though, it should really essentially keep it separate from our slopes. You can see it here, but that's just where the grass would be, but I think that's just a nice little addition to the slopes. As you can see there's some grass bits there. Okay, so I feel that's been quite a successful video. We've got a new material layer that's just on our flat grounds, but you can, like I say, make additions to all this and make it looking quite nice and realistic, but you've also got to keep in mind about the expense of the shader. But in the future, in this particular series, we will be working with virtual textures to reduce that complexity of the shader. Okay, so if you found this video useful, leave a like, a thumbs up and all that. If you need any help, jump in the Discord and I can help you to the best of my abilities. And don't forget, there is a membership program. So if you want to support me and my channel for the future, as it's still quite a new channel, then feel free to join the membership and get these nice perks that you'll get for that. Okay, so I'll see you in the next video, guys. Thank you. Goodbye.